We finally know the mayor's big plan to solve Portland's homeless crisis. Is he opening massive shelters? Nope. Is he outlawing camping? No. He's creating a new city office for homeless services. Oh. So our question is, will this actually fix anything?
What can be done? I don't know, but something must be done.
And speaking of fixing things, a Portland City Commissioner says her idea to put traffic barrels in a neighborhood is helping stop gun violence.
I want to continue this pilot in Mount Scott and beyond.
But is it really these barrels or the beefed up police presence in the area? Here's the story. I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. All the ways to communicate with us right there at the bottom of your screen. You can email us. The address is thestory@kgw.com. You can use the hashtag TheStoryKGW on Twitter or leave us a good old-fashioned voicemail. Just call our number, 503-226-5090. Tonight's big story sounded like a big announcement when we first heard about it. Now, we're not so sure that we're impressed, but we'll let you be the judge. In the past few weeks, Portland Mayor Ted Wheeler has floated a bunch of really big ideas on how to fix our homeless crisis. Everything from massive shelters that can hold up to 1,000 people to an outright ban on camping in the city. So we kind of expected him to announce something kind of big this morning. Instead, he's creating a new city office to handle all homeless issues in the city of Portland. So, could this be a turning point? We'll let Maggie Vespa take it from there.
People in this city aren't stupid.
More than 6 years into a housing emergency and roughly 5 years since he was first elected to solve it, Portland's mayor knows this crisis is worse than ever.
I would be an idiot to sit here and tell you that things are better today than they were 5 years ago with regard to homelessness.
At a press conference Wednesday, Mayor Ted Wheeler took aim at one piece of red tape, the city's structure. The mayor explained from housing and fire to the Office of Management and Finance, which coordinates the clearing of camps. Nearly every city bureau handles a piece of the homelessness response. In short, it's a mess. The mayor made a diagram.
This is a great example of the mess of well-intentioned, systemic, cross-bureau spaghetti and is unnecessarily wasteful.
Enter Wednesday's announcement, an emergency order restructuring that response to look like this. Mayor Wheeler wants to pull all city staff who deal with homelessness into a new team called the Street Services Coordination Center. He'll run it and says it'll make clearing camps and getting people into shelters smoother.
What can be done? I don't know, but something must be done.
The question Wednesday, in a city struggling with more than 4,000 people living on its streets and in its shelters, will this make a difference?
It's really dangerous to be on the road. It's really dangerous to be a homeless person.
The mayor points out this is the latest in a series of executive orders from his office. Last month, he implemented an emergency ban on camping along dangerous roadways after studies show the majority of pedestrians hit by cars in Portland are homeless. Wheeler is also among a coalition of Oregon mayors pushing lawmakers in Salem for more money to open shelters. That push is producing results. Amid the ongoing short session, state Democrats are championing a funding package that funnels $25 million to cities and counties across Oregon. Mayor Wheeler has long said the state and feds need to do more to address a crisis that's growing up and down the West Coast.
People can blame me if they want. If that's hopeful, go for it. But that's not why I'm here. I'm not here to be the beanbag dummy. I'm here to work very hard to address the homeless crisis.
All right, Maggie Vespa joining us now. Maggie, this press conference was a bit fiery today. The mayor at one point literally said, "I'm not here to make friends."
I know, he did. It kind of felt like a reality show for a second. But, reporters did have a lot of really pointed questions, all boiling down to how much does this shift in staffing at City Hall and this new office really matter? And if it does matter, frankly, why is it only happening now?
Well, that was my question, too. Yeah. And I know that you asked him that verbatim. I want to play his answer.
So why now? We have been under COVID restrictions for the last 2+ years. That has greatly limited our approach around homelessness, as you're aware, both in terms of our congregate shelter as well as sanctioned camps and other services that we provided, including remediating problematic campsites, including moving people out of dangerous or squalid conditions. And now that COVID is starting, knock on wood, starting to be in the rearview mirror, there is an opportunity here that I do not want to miss. And as far as where have I been for 5 years? For 5 years, I have championed substantial increases in shelter. We have pursued new innovations, the Kenton's Women's Shelter.
So I do want to be clear, some people online kind of latched on to that "where have I been for 5 years" moment. That was not how I phrased my question. That was just how the mayor summarized it back to me. But, Pat, I think the biggest thing that you're going to be hearing more and more of is he is pushing more and more for state and federal funding. So we kind of expect those calls to get louder.
All right, Maggie Vespa, thank you. The spotlight is often on Portland when it comes to the homeless crisis, but small towns across the state are dealing with similar issues. That's why this week's Hey Help campaign is highlighting the Forest Grove Foundation. The group aims to help distribute food, supplies, and clothes to homeless individuals around Washington County. If you want to help, just scan the QR code there on your screen or go to kgw.com/heyhelp. Here's Executive Director Sean Cardwell.
We have an outreach van, so we stock that thing and take it out. And our value of our organization is generosity. So as it's generously given to us, we generously give it away to those that need out in our community.
And you can be a part of that help. Here's the QR code again. This is a micro donation drive, so you can send as little as a few bucks or a lot more if you'd like. We've spent a lot of time talking about Portland's gun violence and how there's no easy solution. But yesterday, Portland City Commissioner Joanne Hardesty highlighted what she believes is a modest success. Hardesty said Southeast Portland's Mount Scott Arletta neighborhood saw a 64% reduction in shootings after a pilot project that's aimed at slowing down traffic. In October, PBOT put out orange barrels after neighbors complained about all the shootings. Residents said people were routinely firing off rounds and then speeding away. The pilot project also included more park rangers at Mount Scott Park and increased police patrols in the neighborhood. So let's bring in Kyle Aboshi now, because several months ago you looked at the data and you found something very different.
Yeah, so in December we looked at this and we were curious whether these were effective or not, the barrels that were placed in that neighborhood. We looked at 911 data and basically evaluated the number of calls about reckless driving and shootings. And what we found is the situation really did not improve that much. Now, here's the important thing. The metrics that we use are different than Commissioner Hardesty's office. She focused on the number of shootings, which in fact have gone down. That's fact, from 11 to 4. So not big numbers, but yes, indeed, they went down. She, again, does not spiking the football saying, hey, this is some huge success. She says it is a modest success and credits the community, park rangers, police, along those lines.
Hard to believe that an orange barrel restricting or slowing somebody's ability to speed away is going to stop shootings, though. Right, and to her credit, Commissioner Hardesty admitted it wasn't the barrels alone that changed the game here. We did hear from Portland Police, and this is what's interesting. They said they increased patrols in that area during the same time period, and they feel like that was really a critical element here. They had a number of missions focused on stolen vehicles. They feel like that presence, the visibility, the added enforcement, that may have made a difference more than anything else. You think this is something that could be replicated around the city? I'm sure lots of neighborhoods would love to have those saturations. Yeah, and that was kind of the goal here in a pilot program. You want to test it out and see if it will work elsewhere. It is generally a pretty small area, though. We're talking about 6-block area, about 18 barrels in total. So the question is, does this work citywide? Well, this is a pretty small area we're focused on. Yeah, I mean, it would be nice if the answer was that simple, but I'm having trouble believing it. It was all the barrels anyway. Any coincidence that this is coming now as we approach election season and Commissioner Hardesty is up for election? She is up for re-election, and like any politician, obviously you want to tout your successes if you feel they're a success, and that is a question to be raised. Yes, all right, thank you. Kyle Aboshi, always interesting with his in-depth investigations. Thanks, Kyle. A number of shootings over the last year are still not solved, and the mother of one victim is urging everyone to speak up. Adam Arambaidi and his friend Billy Peters died last February, a year ago, after being shot while leaving the Acropolis Steakhouse and Strip Club. Police have said they believe there are people who know what happened who have not come forward. I talked with Adam's mom today. She's issuing a plea not just for her son, but for all the sons and daughters who've been killed. If you know something, she says you need to tell Crime Stoppers where you can be anonymous.
I feel like it's a public responsibility at this point. The police can only do so much. Without the public's help, we will never get these crimes solved. We have to be able to figure out who they are, because they're not just a couple people. They are a small group of people who are going out and doing these shootings and getting away with it in broad daylight now.
Experts say that people are hesitant to come forward because of fear of retaliation or apathy. But you can submit a tip anonymously to Crime Stoppers by calling their phone number. It's there on your screen, 503-823-4357, or just Google Crime Stoppers Portland, and it will take you to an online site where you can offer your tip. You could get up to $2,500 if there's a conviction in the case, and you can stay anonymous. We're still getting lots of feedback from you on the violence and chaos in outer southeast Portland. Here's a couple that came in recently. The first is from Al, who said he's lived in Portland for 30 years and southeast Portland the last 15 years.
Within the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'll be leaving Portland and Oregon. Very disappointed. And I put the blame directly on our city government. And I put it mostly on our so-called Mayor Wheeler.
And we used to live on 99th and Herald right in that area. And we left there last year because of the violence and the gunshots and the fear for our lives, not knowing in the middle of the night when we hear shots if it's going to come through our window and kill us or something.
I feel so bad for those people. Ugh. You can leave us a voicemail too if you'd like. We listen to all of them. Now, let's talk about this show for a moment. We're a local news show for people who've given up on local news but still care deeply about local issues. I saw a thread on Reddit recently, this one, where someone seemed to be surprised that we are different from other news shows. Well, we are. I figure by 6 o'clock, you've already heard the news. So we want to go deeper when we can, not just tell you what happened, but give you context, talk about why something happened and what it means. Some TV newscasts look and sound exactly the same way they did in the 1970s. Why? Well, it's partly because it's so hard to gather in-depth information and turn it around to be on the air as quickly as reporters do these days. I think another reason is corporations are reluctant to change a show formula that's worked well enough for years. But our company's different, and they've given us marching orders to listen to you, the community, and to tackle the big issues that face us any way that we want. You help us decide what to focus on through your phone calls and emails and tweets. That's why we ask for them so often. This is your show. KGW's mission statement is, we champion the truth, we advocate for change, we work to make our community better. I like that. You may have heard that KGW and our corporation, Tegna, are being bought by another company. It's true, but I'm told they'll be just as supportive of our form of journalism. We are fiercely independent. We get no input from corporate leaders on what should or should not be covered. We are local. Decisions about what get into this show are made locally here in Portland by me and a talented team that put the show together. I'm not here to support conservatives or liberals or any other philosophy, and I am definitely not running for anything. Well, I am running some mornings, training for a half Ironman, if you must know, this summer. But you know what I mean. I'm here to represent you, the community. Yes, you're going to get my opinion from time to time. I run everything through my filter of being a reporter right here in Portland for 32 years. And when I think something is BS or a politician is spinning or pivoting, I'm going to tell you. You don't have to agree with my opinion either. It won't hurt my feelings. My wife often disagrees, and I care more about her input than anyone on the planet. So you can let me know what you think. We are growing our audience here, and as I've emailed back to many of you, our tent is large and everyone is welcome. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I do know we are just getting going. And I hope you'll keep joining us here live Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. or on our YouTube channel. And yes, feel free to let me know what you think about this commentary as well. You can email the story at kgw.com or leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090.
We now know the State of the Union, at least according to the president. But what about the state of Oregon? We took that question to you.
The state of Oregon is...
The state of Oregon is changing. Rents rising, higher taxes.
And some experts.
The state of Oregon is anxious, in flux, frustrated.
When the story continues.
You might have noticed our show wasn't on last night because we were airing the President's State of the Union address instead. But it did get us thinking about the state of Oregon. We know you all have a lot of opinions about how things are going. So David Molko talked to some ordinary folks and a couple of political strategists about where we're at in Oregon and where we're headed.
I'm David from KGW. Can you take my quiz? So I'm talking about the state of Oregon and the state of Portland. Hey man, sorry to interrupt your lunch. You're walking toward the reporter with the sign.
The state of Oregon is...
The state of Oregon is changing. Rent's rising, higher taxes, the homeless problem, of course.
You know, I think we're on the rebound. It's been a tough couple years.
The state of Oregon right now is under construction, really. I mean, we have had so much unrest and so many changes that have come our way and failures.
The state of Oregon is anxious, in flux, frustrated.
These are wild times.
And a recent DHM poll found that 88% of Portland area voters surveyed said they believe their quality of life was getting worse. And in an open-ended question said that homelessness was the #1 issue for 45%, followed by crime.
The state of Portland is crumbling.
Still rattled and saddened and shaken by the shooting in Normandale Park.
I don't think Portland is as pro-business as it needs to be.
Crime, there is anxiety about the impact of COVID and the economy, and we have this sense of tribalism.
Truly, people are eager to rebuild the city and to bring back the culture that has drawn people from all over the world to it. How do we do that? I think folks are still trying to figure it out.
Oregon is doing great at...
Anything?
Boy, that's a really good question.
I love that the coastline's all public.
I think I'm going to withhold judgment.
You have to give the governor credit, and I think the Oregon population, for responding to COVID.
We have more women elected. We have more persons of color ever serving.
Oregon needs to improve. Yeah, I've got to go back to the homeless crisis.
People want to be good. People want for things to be better.
I'm not condemning people that are homeless, but I'm condemning our leaders for not dealing with having clean, safe streets.
I feel like Oregon is really good at talking about the problems that they want to solve, but not digging deep to actually solve them. And it's a fear of change.
We need to get at the question of health, mental health, workforce issues in a significant way and a very focused way.
Our elected leaders need to
make tougher decisions to deal with everything from mental health issues to being able to entice businesses to not leave the city.
I'm definitely tired of our city and state leadership.
I think they need to take a step back and look at how things have been going.
To keep listening and learning. And I think that goes all the way up to our elected officials.
Actually listen to where Oregonians want the state to go. It's really easy to do talking points. You can write anything in 7 seconds.
What we're missing, I think, is a generation of leaders that are about to come into the fore and their ability to kind of capture the public's imagination.
And I think there's a bit of hope in the air.
You know, I think it's all solvable. I don't think Oregon's, going downhill so fast we can't recover.
Yeah, I'm hope springs eternal kind of guy. I'm optimistic.
I'm optimistic about that some of the leadership is going to be coming from the grassroots up and forcing our elected leaders to act.
I think there's a lot of good hearts here, but so that's why I've stayed.
Welcome back. How many of you drink wine? I'm guessing it's a decent number of you, especially since Oregon and Washington have become pretty big wine producers. But warming temperatures across the Pacific Northwest are threatening that industry. Angelique Caudet from our sister station in Seattle talked to some grape growers about how climate change is impacting their crops.
Dustin Tobin and his crews at Precept Wine Brands are using the winter months to remove grapevines that no longer produce quality fruit, pulling the vines out one by one from the ground they were planted in the early 1990s. Around the time grape growing became popular in the region.
California is looking at us like, you guys are nuts. It's way too cold up here.
Once considered too cold, rising temperatures have forced wine growers to adjust. Between 1895 and 2011, the Pacific Northwest warmed by about 1.3 degrees.
It's how we react to the weather, and we try and react on a proactive way.
They're learning to work with a limited water supply during extreme heat, like the record-breaking highs seen last summer.
We just rotated the water every 6 hours. What got water on a Monday from noon to 6, which is the hottest part of the day, got water on Tuesday from 6 p.m. to midnight.
Wine grapes don't need a lot of water, about a third less than apples, but wine making is as much of an art as it is a science. Each grape grower reacting to climate change differently.
We're hiding the fruit with the canopy. We didn't used to do that. We used to expose it. Our row orientation is changing a little bit.
Dick Boucher has been growing wine grapes in Yakima Valley for 41 years.
I never experienced 150 degrees in my life.
He worries even with water management. Warmer temperatures in the mountains means even less water stored as snow, impacting the reservoirs servicing the Yakima Valley, like the ones seen along I-90.
Nothing's been built since before World War II, and yet there's way more water demand. And at some point, that's going to catch up with us.
While harvest was down by 25% last year, cherries 20%, and apples at least 5%, some experts say the biggest threat is still to come. Last year, Washington saw 1,191 DNR fires, the most in the past 10 years.
The number of fires and the amount of smoke has definitely become most intense.
Dr. Wade Wolf says the result is smoke taint.
It kind of gives the wine a ashtray or cigar butt type character.
Last fall, Washington State University announced it was part of a $7.6 million grant to study smoke taint and its impact on wine, teaming up with scientists up and down the West Coast.
There were fires in California, Oregon, and Washington going on simultaneously.
But that research is new, and it could take time for scientists to find solutions, leaving winemakers worried whether your glass is half empty or half full. The taste could be different.
Keep sending your questions and comments to the story at KGW.com. When we come back, we're going to hear some good news. Finally tonight, we're starting a segment that we hope to run a couple of times a week, a bit of good news. We know that despite all the bad stuff going on, there's a lot more good stuff. So we sent a producer out on the streets to ask people to share their good news with us. One man we met is glad to be back in the Rose City.
My good news is that after a year and a little over a year in Charleston, South Carolina, we're back in Portland. And back here for the spring coming up. And our other part of our good news is our son has moved back to Portland from New York City with his fiance. So we're all back here and we're glad to be here, and now it's time to clean up the city.
I recognize you, and we could definitely use your help. Glad you're back. Hey, that's the end of our story. Thanks for watching. But remember, the story, our story, that never ends. See you here tomorrow night.
This is KGW News at 6:30.